What is the future of disciple making? Listen as Brother David Splane delivers the talk. Wouldn't it be great?
The year text for 2020 was about the preaching work. Go, make disciples, baptizing them. Now, in harmony with that theme, the governing body directed that a number of study articles should be prepared for the study edition of the Watchtower on the ministry, and particularly about conducting Bible studies. Then, at the regional convention this summer, almost the entirety of Saturday was dedicated to the disciple-making work. Why? We don't just want to report Bible studies. We want to make disciples. That's what Jesus told us to do. Go, make disciples, baptizing them. Now, when it comes to reporting Bible studies, we're doing very well. Worldwide, we're reporting about 10 million Bible studies. And when you think of it, in many cases, more than one person is sitting in on that study. So it could be that between 12 and 15 million people are studying the Bible with us. But now, what about the make disciples part of it? Well, every year, between 200 and 300,000 people are baptized. So you can see that the make disciples part is lagging behind the reporting Bible studies part. Now, this trend has been a concern of the governing bodies for a number of years. And we wondered, why is it that so many people are not taking a stand for the truth? You can probably think of a number of reasons yourself.
I can think of one very compelling reason: because it's wrong. Because it's all a load of nonsense. That's why you have, think about it. These are embarrassing statistics. And David Splane is giving us this long preamble because he's about to unveil this new teaching tool or indoctrination tool that Jehovah's Witnesses should be using from henceforth to recruit people into the organization. And he's doing it by reeling off some embarrassing statistics. 10 million Bible studies. I'm assuming that number represents people who study the Bible with Jehovah's Witnesses in any given year, and they're baptizing between 200,000 and 300,000 out of 10 million. I think saying the governing body should be concerned is an understatement. That is a damning indictment on the whole process, on the validity of the information, on the truthfulness of the information. The lesson they should be taking with those figures is, people aren't being hoodwinked. People aren't being fooled. Yes, it's relatively easy to start people on a Bible study, especially if they're children. And it would be interesting to know what percentage of the 10 million were actually children of Jehovah's Witnesses. I'm guessing a reasonable percentage, maybe half. It's easy to get people started, but at some point, for reasons that we just can't figure out, people are bailing on us. People are stopping their study, or they're not taking it any further. Do you not think, David Splane, that it might have something to do with Google? With people going on Google and after a few clicks realizing that the whole thing is a monumental scam.
Maybe the study isn't regular. Maybe it isn't consistent. Maybe the student often cancels, or maybe the publisher often cancels. Well, if a study isn't regular, it's pretty hard for the person to make progress, isn't it? And in many cases, kind-hearted publishers just can't bring themselves to stop the study when no progress is being made. Or they may say, if I stop the study, I won't have a study. I like having a Bible study. Well, we're talking about progressive Bible studies, and that's a challenge. It's not easy to conduct a progressive Bible study. There are so many factors to consider. For example, how early do I bring in prayer? How do I direct interest to the organization? How early should I mention the meetings? And what do I do if my Bible student doesn't show up at the meeting? What about opposition? That can be tricky. Bring it up too soon, and you might scare him off. Wait too long, and it may be too late.
Isn't that interesting? He's reeling off a number of things here that Jehovah's Witnesses need to think about when they're conducting their progressive Bible study. Progressive meaning a Bible study that's not likely to bail, a Bible study that isn't just appreciative of having some company in their home on a weekly basis. And speaking as someone who's pioneered for 9 years as a Jehovah's Witness, I had studies like that where they were manifestly just appreciative of having someone come visit them regularly. I can remember my mother going along on a Bible study where she was basically doing her friend a favour. Mum knew that the study wasn't going anywhere, and furthermore, that the Bible study only wanted to have this lady come visit Mum's friend because she spoke French, and the Bible study wanted to improve his French, and that's why they were meeting. So that was a non-progressive Bible study, and I'm sure there are many Bible studies like that, where people just want some company. People are prepared to tolerate being subjected to nonsense from the Bible so long as they can have someone in the room with them on a weekly basis. But David Splane is here going through a number of issues that Jehovah's Witnesses need to think about if they want to have progressive Bible studies. And one of these issues is, when do we mention opposition? When do we mention the fact that we're not popular and actually lots of people have some fairly damning things to say about Jehovah's Witnesses, and that our Bible studies absolutely shouldn't go on Google or listen to anything that the media has to say about us, or listen to any critical information about our movement? When should we mention that? At what point? You don't want to do it too early because you might frighten them away. Better to leave it a little bit later so that they're more invested. They've invested a bit more time and energy. The sunk cost fallacy has a little bit of a foothold. Then maybe it will be easier for them to buy into the idea that there's a satanic conspiracy underway and the media are out to get Jehovah's Witnesses. Isn't it fascinating? Again, open deception, open attempts to trick people into joining something that no sane person would really join if they had all the facts. Jehovah's Witnesses here being encouraged to withhold information to avoid scaring people off.
Here's more food for thought. How do I make sure that the material is really touching the student's heart? I want that student to love Jehovah, to get to know Jehovah. I want him to have a warm personal relationship with Jehovah so that no one, neither the boss, nor his relatives, nor his mate, nor his neighbor, will be allowed to come between my student and Jehovah God.
Oh, another interesting little admission that you won't hear divulged at the beginning of a Bible study. I want you to love Jehovah. And I want your love for Jehovah to be more powerful than the love you have for your family. Because I don't want your family to come between you and your relationship with Jehovah. Jehovah's Witnesses aren't supposed to say this to Bible studies, but that's what they're saying to each other. if you're watching this as someone who's never been a Jehovah's Witness, they're talking about you. They're scheming between themselves and coming up with strategies to trick you. And here David Splane is laying it all out. Well, we just heard, be prudent when it comes to mentioning opposition. Don't mention it too soon. We don't want to scare them off. And now he's saying your aim should be to produce a cult recruit, a new Jehovah's Witness, who's so bulletproof in their indoctrination that nothing can come between them and their relationship with God, not even their family.
In April 2018, the Service Committee of the governing body surveyed the branches to find out what teaching methods were really effective in bringing people along to baptism. We have to admit that some of the study material and teaching methods that we used 30 years ago, they were great for the time, but they don't necessarily meet the needs of people today. Well, they got some good answers in, and based on the answers, early in 2019, a team of brothers, there were writers, there were designers and consultants, they got together to investigate whether we could improve on the tools that we're using. And they came up with a new method for conducting studies. Now let's stop here and be very clear. We deeply appreciate all of the study material that we've had over the years. It's always been great for the times. Now maybe like me, you cut your teeth on Let God Be True. This means everlasting life. The truth shall make you free. Those books were just perfect for the period just after World War II. And then we know that the Live Forever book was a real favorite with many. Now, it wasn't the Study Forever book, it was the Live Forever book, but some took an awful long time to complete their study in that book. And of course, we've all appreciated the Teach Us book and Remain in God's Love. All of this material has been very, very good. But times change, and people's needs change as well. We're living in a visual society, and people learn less by reading than by observing, by watching, and by discussion. So, what are we saying? Are you ready? Today, the governing body is happy to announce that a brand new publication for conducting Bible studies will soon be made available in printed form and in electronic form. Would you like to know the title? It's a good one. Enjoy Life Forever, an interactive Bible course. You may applaud.
Okay, he didn't say, just to be absolutely clear, he didn't say this time, you may applaud. I couldn't resist adding that, and I'm curious to know whether he refrained from saying you may applaud on this occasion because of being mercilessly mocked when he said you may applaud after releasing the Hezekiah drama at the 2020 convention. I'm sorry, I just couldn't resist putting it in there for him. But yes, a new tool. Jehovah's Witnesses will now be trying to recruit you using a book titled Enjoy Life Forever, an interactive Bible course. Interactive? Well, we'll come to that later. I'm not convinced that any indoctrination tool that's produced by Jehovah's Witnesses can ever be truly interactive. But let's go back to what David Splane was saying there. He was pushing this narrative that the New Light merry-go-round I was describing earlier was necessitated by the times changing. Oh, it was all about the times. These books were perfect for the specific time when they were produced, and it's just because the times changed and the people changed that we've had to release new books. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. If you were to study some of these books today, if you were to, as a Jehovah's Witness, call on someone with the truth that leads to eternal life, the blue bombshell, or the Live Forever book, you would be teaching them ideas that would now be considered apostate. You would be teaching them that the generation that witnessed the events of 1914 will not die off before Armageddon comes. You would be teaching them that the faithful and discreet slave are all anointed Christians who have ever lived. And the governing body is just a representative of that slave rather than being the slave itself. All of this is old light. It's teachings that have been quietly done away with because it's a man-made organization. And of course, as a man-made organization, it's constantly going to change its mind on things. That's all this is about. And because it's forever changing its mind, yes, I'm sure to some degree they want to introduce videos into their studies. They have this shiny new toy at Mount Ebo or wherever their studios are, soon to be Ramapo. They have this new video making capability and they want to use it. I'm sure there's an element of that. But no one's going to tell me that this has nothing to do with the fact that this organization is constantly changing its mind when it comes to Bible truth.
What's the format like? Well, it's somewhat similar to the midweek workbook. And you'll see that it's organized in a way that there can be a free discussion between the student and the conductor. In fact, in each lesson, there are just a few introductory paragraphs that the student is invited to read ahead of time, but most of the lesson will be handled between the conductor and the student. It will be a discussion.
Will it really? It will be a discussion. This is interactive. It's just a conversation. It's just two people having a conversation, having an exchange of ideas, where those ideas must eventually conform to the teachings of the governing body. How is that a free discussion? If ultimately the student has to change their minds and has to reorient the way they think, put on the new personality, that's what they call it. If they have to change their very being in order to make it through Armageddon, in order to join this exclusive Armageddon Survivors Club, how is it really a free discussion? How is it really interactive? Look up the definition of interactive on Google. It says, of two people or things influencing each other. So when you're talking about the word interactive in relation to a discussion or a conversation, which is what this is supposed to be, it's no longer read the paragraph and repeat the points in the paragraph. Oh, we're just having a chat. We're just having a conversation here. Interactive means influencing each other. So the student is allowed to influence the Jehovah's Witness. Is that what they're saying? I don't think so. I don't think they understand what interactive means at all. And they certainly don't know what a free discussion is. In the context of a Bible study, it's only ever going to be a case of obey the governing body or else. Listen, obey, and be blessed. You will believe what we're telling you, or you're going to be destroyed at Armageddon. Ultimately, we're getting the same old scam repackaged and rebranded for the 21st century. If you're going to study with Jehovah's Witnesses, you need to accept what they say, believe what they believe, listen, obey, or be destroyed.